Hello, let's look at some bones, shall we? My name is Jessica. It is currently July the 19th of 2020, and I am doing my oral competency for the skeletal system for my anatomy and physiology class. Come along. Let's start at the top with the noggin. The frontal bone's connected to the sphenoid bone. The sphenoid bone's connected to the temporal bone. I think that's nice. Seriously now, let's take a close look at it. The parietal bone, you can see it on both sides of the head. So there's one on the right side, and then if we flip our guy around, you can find the same one on the left side. The temporal bone is the same kind of dealio. So your temporal bone is this big old one back here, and you can see it on both the right side and the left side. The occipital bone, you only have one. The occipital bone is hiding out in the back here. Whoop, whoop, there's your occipital bone. Your ethmoid bone. Ethmoid bone is really hard to see on here. It's in the back of your orbital cavity. So we have our nasal bones, our lacrimal bones are the ones in the front here, and then our ethmoid bones. Ethmoid bones are zygomatic bones over in our cheeks, our maxillas, and our big old mandible is your jaw down at the bottom. Over here in this different view, we can see a few other things. You can see the palatine bones, 1, 2, palatine, 1, 2, and then your vomer right there. And then over on the back side of this, you can see your inferior nasal concha. This guy down here. So you have one on both sides. I don't have a picture of either side, but it would look like this. Moving on to our big guy over here, point out a couple things. So you have a hyoid bone. That's actually a floating bone. It doesn't have a good depiction of him, but he's right here in your neck. It goes over your voice box and is actually not attached to anything. You have your hyoid bone on your neck, you have your clavicles that are run on either side of your sternum in the middle. You have your scapulas on either side over here. You have 12 ribs on either side, so 2 are actually floating down at the bottom, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 11, and this doesn't show a good second floating rib, but 12. You have those 12 ribs on either side. So 12 over here and 12 over here. You can take a look at my vertebrae on my skeleton here. So these top 7 vertebrae, some of them are hidden underneath the skull, but these top 7 vertebrae are the cervical vertebrae. And then if you can imagine these vertebrae back behind the sternum, you can see some, and back through here, there are 12 thoracic vertebrae in the back there. And then there are 5 lumbar vertebrae that are down in the bottom part of the spine. And then there are 5 sacral vertebrae that are fused down in here. And then way down at the bottom there is the coccygeal vertebrae. We see a real up close view of my guy's arm here. You have your humerus up at the top. And then you have your radius is over on the same side as your thumb, and then you have your ulna over here on the same side as your pinky. You have 2 of those. So over on the right side is the same way. So you have your humerus, you have your radius, and then you have your ulna. So if we come down here and look at your hips, you have your innominate bone. It's this whole thing on both sides. But it is broken down into 3 parts on both sides. So you have your ilium, which is this top part over here. You have your ischium, which is down here at the bottom. And then you have your pubic bone, which is this part that comes in the front. You have one on each side. And we're moving right along down into the legs. So you have two femurs, one on either side, your right and your left femurs. You have your right and your left patellas, your kneecaps. You have your right and your left tibias. And then right in the back over here, these smaller ones are your right and your left fibulas. We're almost there. You hanging in there? Did you notice that I missed the hands and the feet? Can't miss those. So here we go. Let's dive in. So down here you have these little bundles of joy, these bundle of bones that's down in your wrist. These are your carpals. And then you have this intermediate part in here. Those are called your metacarpals, and that's in the palm of your hand. And then everything out to the end, these are all your phalanges or your finger bones. Now your phalanges are broken up into the distal phalanges, that's all of these guys here, your intermediate phalanges, those middle bones, and then your proximal phalanges. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Now notice, hey, your thumb only has the distal and the proximal. Can't miss that. Oh, also very important, you have two hands. So you have two of these bones on either side. I don't have another picture of the hand, but it's just a mirror image. All right, moving on to the breakdown of the carpals here. We have your trapezium, we have your trapezoid, your capitate, and your hamate. And then down at the bottom, you have a scaphoid, a lunate, your triquetrum or triquetrum is in the background right there, that big one in the back. And then your pisiform is that one on the top. And again, you have two hands, so you have two of these, and the other side is just a mirror image. Feet. Let's look at your tarsals here. Here are your tarsals. On both feet, you have the same bones. So you have a calcaneus, calcaneus. You have a talus. You have the navicular. You have your cuboid. And you have your medial, intermittent, and lateral cuneiform bones. So medial cuneiform, intermediate cuneiform, and lateral cuneiform. And then if we look at the rest of your feet, you have, it's pretty similar to how your hands are. You have your metatarsals right here. All five of these, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you have your phalanges, which are these guys right here. There's 5 of them. And then again, they're broken down into proximal, intermediate, and distal phalanges. So proximal phalanges, all 5 of these, intermediate, 2, 3, 4, there's only 4 intermediate, and then 5 distal phalanges in your big toe. And again, very important to note, you have 2 hands and 2 feet. So all of the bones that we've talked about that are on your hands and feet, you have 2 of. Just making sure you know that. Extra credit! Everyone likes a little extra credit here and there. Let's go over some of these sutures in the noggin. Here's my guy. Notice this little nose down here, so this is the front and this is the back of your head. So you have your coronal suture up here that separates your frontal bone and your parietal bones. And then you have your sagittal suture that separates your parietal bone. And then in the back here, you have your lambdoid suture, which goes all the way across. You can hardly see it, but it separates your occipital bone and your parietal bones. Also going to point out a few important holes in your skull here. So this big one down here is the foramen magnum. That's where your spinal cord comes through, where your head attaches to your body. We have the, that one's the carotid canal, which obviously that's where your carotid comes through. One of the big blood vessels comes through into your brain. And then down underneath it is the jugular foramen, which the same kind of thing as where your jugular vein comes through. And that's all I have for my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.